Inside a secret chamber in Master Fang's pavilion, the spirits of heaven and earth swarmed inside a red cauldron like wild ocean waves. A gush of unique medicinal fragrance began to scatter, announcing the near conclusion of the brewing process. Master Fang, one of the only 3 alchemists in the city of Qing, had a solemn look on his face. All 10 of his fingers were moving frantically as he drew out alchemistic techniques one after another in an attempt to proceed with the final step of the brewing process, collecting the dans. The fragrance of the medicine continued to diffuse, its spirit prancing. 36 purple dans rose out of the cauldron in the size of dragon eyes. They froze in midair, emitting waves of refreshing scents. Master Fang rolled up his sleeves and collected the dans inside a ring. A glimpse of a smile flashed across his aged and tired face. The dan he has brewed was named the Dan of Cleansed Marrow, the hardest to brew out of the 9 traditional medicine. Based on his past achievements, refining this dan was not easy. However, if he was able to successfully brew the Dan of Cleansed Marrow, he would be only 1 step away from reaching the 8th realm for alchemy. The closeness of achieving this goal is the reason for his happiness. He started practicing alchemy at the age of 18 and became one of the 9th realm alchemists when he reached 30. He has paced around in the 9th realm for 20 years, unable to achieve further success. Though disappointed and regretful, the successful brewing of this dan showed him a sliver of hope. It was as if the door to the 8th realm was slowly opening for him. Ling Xian, it is all thanks to your support that I was able to create the Dan of Cleansed Marrow. I hereby thank you. Master Fang smiled gently, looking at the boy beside him, who was dressed in a robe made out of sackcloth. The youth was around 14 years old. He had handsome features and a tall and straight stance. Even though his robe was coarse and thick, he still gave out the vibe of calmness and serenity. Master Fang, you have overpraised me. I am simply a student who is trying to learn the art of alchemy by assisting you, Ling Xian grinned. He radiated with a degree of maturity and reliability that did not match his young age. Master Fang exclaimed, "You need to stop being so humble. You have been my apprentice for 6 years, and I have grown to know you well. If it wasn't for your precise mixture of the different powders and your comprehensive assistance, I would not have finished brewing the Dan of Cleansed Marrow. I only did what I was supposed to do. Even if I did not exist, Master Fang could have easily refined the Dan of Cleansed Marrow with your profound experience," Ling Xian said softly. "Haha, don't flatter me, boy. I am well aware of my own abilities." Master Fang stroked his beard. Even though he knew Ling Xian is simply boosting his ego, he couldn't help but to laugh. Obviously, what Ling Xian said was effective. Ling Xian smiled silently. He was a child of the Ling clan. His parents had passed away since he was a child. Before the age of 8, he survived purely off his clan's savings and charity. It was only when he became an alchemy student here 6 years ago to assist Master Fang did his life improve a little. Towards Master Fang, who gave him shelter and taught him alchemy, Ling Xian has always been grateful. Therefore, he would never claim credit for himself for their work or do the types of things that might annoy Master Fang. Regarding medicine, you have just as much knowledge as me. Shame, though, if you were able to go under training for Taoism, then you would have become a 9th realm alchemist 3 years ago. Master Fang sighed as he gazed at the handsome boy before him regretfully. Master Fang, you have said that 37 times, Ling Xin chuckled bitterly. Ever since he started retaining memories, the most common sentence he's heard was how much of a pity it is that he cannot go under training. Unfortunately, he just simply cannot practice Taoism. If me repeating those words several times will allow you to become an alchemist, then I am willing to say what I said every day. Master Fang stroked his beard again. The regretful feeling he had grew stronger to a point where it became hard to explain. If Ling Xian could go under training, he would have gone under a prestigious trainer a long time ago and would have inherited the Buddha's mantle. After a long time of interaction, Master Fang have sensed the youth's greatness. He has been deeply shaken by his talent. As for all his life, he had never met anyone with talent that even compare with Ling Xian's. Ling Xian had memory abilities that surpass regular mortals, a calm attitude, as well as a rare understanding of the world. However, because of his lack of ability to draw out spirits from heaven and earth, his great talent had no value. This is what fate is. It is something I cannot change, Ling Xian softly sighed. For 10 years, he tried all the methods he could think of to draw spirits into his body. However, no matter what he does, the moment he pulls in these spirits, they disappear instantly as if they weren't there in the first place. According to ancient literature, there were two main reasons why someone cannot attract spirits. The first reason was that many people are simply mortals who were not birthed with the ability to gather spirits. The second reason explained that those who have been castrated cannot converge the spirits gathered, therefore they are considered disabled. Ling Xian was different. He was not a mere mortal, nor was he a handicap. However, no matter how much effort he puts into practicing and training, no matter how much medicine he takes, he cannot gather spirits and become an apprentice who works towards achieving greatness and immortality. There was nothing he could do. Since he was little, he's had the dream of climbing up to the first realm to view the mortals from above. However, if he cannot even go under training, how can he reach the top of the peak? The idea of Taoism is to reach immortality and go against the principles to seek the great truth about life. Ling Xian, do not give up. Even though your situation is a little special, I truly believe that there are ways to resolve it. Master Fang comforted him as he shook his head. Ling Xian nodded and said, I never thought of giving up. It's just that I don't want to put in any more futile effort by continue consuming the same medicine. But I am prepared to purchase a Dan of the Inner Eye as a final resort. Dan of the Inner Eye? Master Fang frowned. Ling Xian, though the Dan may increase the probability of you overcoming your inability to train, but we both know that this probability is tiny. For the 10,000 years the Dan of the Inner Eye existed, there has only been 3 cases where it worked out. The possibility is 1 out of a billion. I am fighting for that 1 in a billion chance, Ling Xian said, his eyes reflecting his determination. Other than using the Dan to try and unlock the Inner Eye, I cannot think of any other method to change my fate. The Inner Eye is one of the strongest and most mysterious techniques in the Taoism community. There are 108 types of inner eyes, and each type possesses abilities that are mysteriously forceful. The ones who could wake the inner eye were not just those who are favored by God. Even if the inner eye unlocked were not useful for battle, the ones who unlocked them were fought over and praised by all prestigious clans. A classic example was the 99th ranked eyesight that allowed one to see the light all treasures emit. Even if the treasure was sealed with many different spells, one with such eyesight is able to notice them. The eyesight could also be used to search for spirits and historic remains. Its uses were countless. Based on the history record, 30,000 years ago, a casual trainee acquired those pupils out of sheer coincidence. Within a few short years, he discovered many spirits and found treasures that were worth millions. In the end, he became a famous powerhouse within the community. People called him the gentleman with many treasures. Since you have made up your mind, then I will no longer try to talk you out of it. Here are 500 spiritual stones. Take it as your compensation for helping me. Master Fang waved his hand in the air, and uniquely shaped stones appeared out of thin air. This... Ling Xian felt a wave of warmth. To assist the brewing of a Dan, the most you can earn was 5 stones. This time, it was rather obvious that Master Fang was trying to help him purchase the Dan of the Inner Eye. Master Fang saw his hesitation and chuckled softly. There is no need to quarrel with me. Just think of it as my sponsorship. With your natural latent, once you acquire the Inner Eye and start training, you will for sure be highly regarded in the future. Think of this as an early investment. Ling Xian was silent. He has always been a lonely kid with nobody on his side because he had no ability to practice Taoism. All his life he has been mocked and taunted. But now, he was being taught by one of the only 3 alchemists in the city of Qing, and his master was willing to invest in him so he can fight for that tiny chance of releasing the Inner Eye. Ling Xian was truly touched. After a few moments of silence, Ling Xian placed the 500 stones inside his pouch. He bowed deeply towards his master, who was smiling kindly. If I am able to reach the cloud of Qing, I will walk through fire and swim across the ocean to pay you my gratitude. You saying that is already enough. I do not seek any return. I simply think you have great potential and you have been through such roughness. I want to help in ways that I can. Master Fang chuckled again. Go on. It is already noon. I know you will be going to work at Mr. Wang's, so I will not ask you to stay for tea. Ling Xian nodded and exited the secret chamber. His heart was filled with appreciation and excitement. What Master Fang has given him was not simply 500 stones in payment. It was an opportunity. An opportunity to fly like a dragon at the highest point in the sky. I will succeed, Ling Xian thought silently as he walked toward the direction of Kai Zhen Pavilion. Though the Dan of the inner eye was one of the most recognized medicine, the real and good quality Dans were only sold in specialized counters that sell luxury treasures, namely inside the Qi Zhen Pavilion. With a market price of 700 stones, it was not that expensive for a monk with somewhat of a background. However, for Ling Xian, 700 was an astronomical figure. By working part-time, staying frugal, and combining those past compensations with the stones he received from Master Fang, he had enough to pay for the Dan with his savings. Soon, Ling Xian arrived before the three-floored Qi Zhen Pavilion where merchants meet. As he was about to enter, he suddenly heard a hoarse voice in his head. The voice seemed to be far away, yet it seemed to be right beside his ear. It is someone with a ban. How can a being with such rare talent show up at such a place? Who was it? Ling Xian jumped. He could clearly feel a set of eyes gazing at him. I have slept for tens and thousands of years. I cannot believe that as soon as I wake up I am able to encounter a boy with such potential. I have such good luck. The voice continued to murmur. He seemed to be exclaiming about the passing of time, but he was also exclaiming his own good luck. Not sure which grandmaster this is, but please do not joke with me. I was born disabled. I am not a rare talented being as you have described me. Ling Xian carefully said, his voice showing a hint of nervousness, but he was not at all flustered. 14 years of hardships, he has endured countless mockery and eye rolls. These experiences have shaped him into someone who perseveres, who is mature, who is always composed. Disabled? The voice asked before bursting into laughter. That is the funniest joke I have heard in 30,000 years. If you are someone with a disability, then the 9 heaven clans and the 3 spiritual bodies are all trash. Ling Xian frowned. He knew about the 9 heavenly bodies. Each one of them had a shocking talent and powers that were out of the world. So what the hoarse voice meant is that his potential as a handicap was stronger than the 9 heavenly bodies. I know you do not believe me now, but you will believe me in a little bit. The voice spoke again. The next second, Ling Xian watched as a painting flew out of the Qi Zhen Pavilion. Glistening with 9 different colors, it flew with the vibe of desolation. It swaddled Ling Xian and disappeared. It was as if they disappeared into a different world. Loud laughter. The biggest achievement from this was not him igniting his 3rd Qi. Rather, the biggest gain was his new pair of inner eyes. His left eye was ink black and his right was snow white. These were the 4th-ranked inner eyes. Eyes of Execution. Eyes of Execution was ranked 4th out of the 104 types of inner eyes. This prestigious ranking itself was enough to stun a huge population. According to ancient literature, this pair of inner eyes appeared once 12,000 years ago. It was a radiant era back then, a time when there were numerous successful emperors and an abundance of respectable heroes. The owner of the Eyes of Execution dominated the country using those eyes' abilities and became the strongest powerhouse in history. He was truly legendary. He woke the Eyes of Execution after merely being released from the first seal. His potential really is out of this world, Liao Kang Qiang exclaimed in awe. He has been an immortal for a long time and nothing rarely surprised him anymore. For him to be in awe right now means Ling Xian's potential was shockingly powerful. Thank you, Master, Ling Xian said excitedly. He could clearly feel the strength hidden inside his pupils. Even though he cannot unleash their abilities yet, he was sure that one day these inner eyes will illuminate with the glory they deserve. I am feeling rather fragile and I will need some time to rest. You are now free from the first seal. This alone is enough for you to train until you reach the level of knotting the Dan, also known as the skill that enables you to combine your spirit, body, and qi. As for the other 3 seals, we will deal with them later, Liao Kang Qiang said, his face full of exhaustion. Yes, Master, please rest well. Ling Xian's heart was filled with thankfulness. Is there anything I can do for you? You having that thought is enough, but you are far too weak right now to do anything for me. Liao Kang Qiang smiled kindly and waved at him to go. Go on. The painting of the 9 Immortals is now your world to play around in. This place is surrounded with spiritual energy, triple the amount you can get outside. You are welcome to come anytime you want. He then drifted towards the tallest mountain in sight, Then he disappeared into the woods and fell into a deep sleep. Around that towering mountain, numerous other mountains in different shapes and forms stood closely. It was as if they were talking to each other. The scenery was dazzling. The mountains seemed to be equipped with the ability to heal and restore souls. I wonder if there is an immortal resting in each of these mountains, Ling Xian murmured. As his thought wandered, he disappeared from the internal world of the painting, and he found himself standing before the front steps of the Qi Zhen Pavilion. Staring at the sign that said Qi Zhen Pavilion, Ling Xian felt 1,000 emotions rushing through him. Just an hour ago, he was merely a troubled mortal, fighting for the slightest probability of having a better life by buying the Dan of the inner eye. But now, he has begun his apprenticeship and acquired eyes of execution. He finally felt liberated. He wanted to swim alongside the fishes in the river and fly with the birds in the sky. He had to say, this world really was unpredictable. Now that I can go under training, I should get some ancient books that were passed down in my clan. Those should help me advance in my journey, Ling Xian thought. He turned and walked toward the Ling clan's library, where valuable records and books could be found. The city of Qing was the north part of the country. It was a small city. Other than the city's government, there were only 3 clans that dominated the city: the Ling clan, Qi clan, and Fang clan. Ling Xian belonged to the Ling clan. However, because he could not practice Taoism, and because his clan had given him nothing but the house his dead parents left him, he felt no strong connections with his clan. When his clan is mentioned, he could only think of the infinite amount of teasing and taunting he experienced. The great library could be found at the very back of the Ling's palace. It was a magnificent 3-story wooden loft. The afternoon sun shone, brightening the red shingles of the rooftop. This building was the most secretive place of the palace, because there absolutely cannot be trespassing. Inside, there were records of secret techniques that were explored and created by the Lings in the past few hundred years. With a Qi level of 3 and below, trainees were only allowed to read books and records on the first floor. From level 4 to 8, the second floor was open for viewing. Finally, the 3rd story was only open to the elderly and the leaders of the clan. There was no door to the great library, only a water spell casted to stop those who were not a part of the clan from entering. Ling Xian took out a green bronze medal carved with his identity and dropped it into the water. The water instantly began to twirl and splash, dragging him into the loft. The scent of antiques and old books rushed towards him. He looked around. The first story was not very big, only filled with rows of bookshelves and books that were dusty and turning yellow. Without hesitation, he walked towards the shelf that contained records of Taoism techniques. He wanted to look for a technique that he felt curious about and could learn about. To sit and to forget technique, marrow cleansing technique, see-through technique. Ling Xian felt overwhelmed by the countless different techniques. His eyes scanned all the books until finally, he set his sight on a very simple-looking book. Bible of the 3 Flowers. It was a strange name. The cover was covered in dust. Clearly nobody has flipped open this book for a very long time. When he picked up the book, there was a voice inside him that whispered, "This is the one, take this one." Ling Xian frowned. He had no idea where the strange instinct was coming from. He hesitated for a while, but eventually gave in and chose to study this strange technique. "Little fella, you want to choose the Bible of the 3 Flowers." A ghostly figure suddenly appeared beside him. It was an elderly with a white beard. Time has been unkind to him, as there were only wrinkles on his face, making him look very tired and old. "Yes, elder." Ling Xian's face was composed. He's always known about the elder's presence and his identity. "The guardian of the great library." The elder beamed and warned, "Based on my estimation, by looking at your bones, you are only 14 years old but have already reached the 3rd level of Qi. I can tell you have talent, but if you choose to learn a technique that cannot be refined and practiced, you would be wasting a lot of precious time. I suggest you choose a different book." A technique that cannot be refined and practiced. Curiosity flashed across Ling Xian's eyes. "Thank you for advising me, elderly. However, I have already made up my mind. Others cannot practice it doesn't mean I can't either. I am willing to give it a try." "Others can't do it doesn't mean I can't either. You have great ambition," the guardian praised as he chuckled. "But if it turns out that you cannot practice it after all, don't force yourself. You are welcome to return at any time and try a different technique." Yes, elderly, thank you. Ling Xian put the Bible of the Three Flowers inside his pouch and left the great library. He was walking towards his house when he suddenly heard a series of provocative snickering. Aren't you the disabled Ling Xian? You are still alive. A young boy dressed in a black robe walked towards him. He was short with a sharp mouth and chubby cheeks. On his face, an unpleasant smile hung. Ling Yu, Ling Xian's face dropped. Based on the family tree, the young man could be considered a cousin to him. Because Ling Yu achieved the first level of qi at a young age, he had always taken advantage of that skill and provoked Ling Xian for his own entertainment. Before today, Ling Xian has always endured it because he could not go under training, but now he was determined to confront him and make him pay. Yep, it's me. Why? Does running into someone so noble scare you? Ling Yu snickered. He was born with an unbearably ugly face and never had much potential with Taoism. Therefore, he has always been insanely jealous of those who were handsome and those who showed potential in Taoism. The only person he could pick on in the entire clan was Ling Xian, as he was handicapped. Ling Xian was burning with anger on the inside, but on the outside he remained calm. Yes, I am very scared. Then kowtow 3 times before me and crawl between my legs. Do it, and I'll let you live today. Ling Yu moved his legs hip-width apart and began to laugh arrogantly. Your suggestion is pretty nice. I've decided to adopt it. Come, kowtow 3 times, Ling Xian coldly grinned. What did you say to me? Ling Yu froze for a second, then smiled. Did your brain get damaged too in addition to your other disability? How dare you say such things to me? Did I not teach you a harsh enough lesson last time? You want to fight? A hint of murderous intent flashed across Ling Xian's face. I'm not scared of you. You are handicapped. Today I will teach you a lesson so deadly you'll never forget it. Ling Yu walked towards Ling Xian step by step with a ferocious look on his face. Why don't you try? Ling Xian remained cold. He has already reached the 3rd level of qi. Even if he stood still and took the beating, Ling Yu still cannot hurt a single hair of his. Remember, from now on, every time you see me, you must kneel. Ling Yu smirked. Using all his heavenly strength, he lunged his fist towards Ling Xian. His fist was heavy like the mountains, aimed to suffocate the opponent on impact. Ling Xian did not even attempt to dodge. He simply waved his right hand. Instantly, a tornado emerged. Energy from the 3rd qi gushed outwards like unstoppable tidal waves. Bam! Their 2 fists smashed together. Qi poured out of Ling Xian and smacked onto Ling Yu's body forcefully. His body, like a broken stringed kite, flew backward for meters before he hit the ground and was coughing up blood. Instant knockout. Impossible. How did you suddenly have spiritual energy? Ling Yu's face was full of disbelief. He could not comprehend what has just happened. How could someone who was considered a waste become so powerful so suddenly? Ling Yu, I am no longer the Ling Xian you know. If you want to humiliate me, then you have to be prepared to pay with your life, Ling Xian said ruthlessly. With 1 foot, he stomped on Ling Yu's chest, preventing him from breathing. Ling Yu gagged as more blood rolled down his chin from his mouth. This isn't possible. How can a handicap defeat me? Ling Yu rejected reality. He coughed out more blood as he screamed in anger. Nothing is impossible. You called me disabled and a waste of space all my life. But who's the disabled one now? Ling Xian slapped Ling Yu's face hard. A few of Ling Yu's teeth fell out. Ling Yu screamed in pain. He shakily pointed his finger at Ling Xian and cursed, You are dead. You dared to touch me? Watch me. I am going to kill you. Stubborn, Ling Xian gave him a deadly look. Fast like lightning, he snapped Ling Yu's index finger in 2. Ling Yu's face whitened in response to the pain. He finally realized the situation and begged, I am wrong. Ling Xian, I have been so wrong. Please let me go now. Remember, if you do this one more time, I will slaughter you. Ling Xian glared at him and lifted his foot off Ling Yu's chest. Ignoring Ling Yu, who now looks like a dead dog, Ling Xian walked straight back to his house. The anger in his chest was now gone. He has avenged himself for the humiliation he experienced from the past. He felt relieved and relaxed. The suppressed anger and the depression that clouded him for 14 years could finally be dismissed. He was given the chance to start anew. He was rebirthed. It was early morning, in the midst of 1,000 mountains and trees. As the breeze blew, the leaves swayed. With every rush of wind, a new tide in the color of green began. Wave after wave, there was no end in sight. Somewhere in the sea of trees, a mile-tall waterfall hung. Mist and fog filled the air as the heavy water spattered. The atmosphere was hazy, the scenery resembled a fairyland. Near the waterfall, a young boy dressed in white sat in the lotus pose on top of a boulder. His eyes tightly shut, surges of spiritual power engulfed him, slowly being absorbed into his body. This young man was Ling Xian. After teaching Ling Yu a lesson yesterday, he headed home exhilarated and had the best sleep he's ever had. Early this morning, he woke up and began his training in this rather isolated jungle. Even though he was young in age, he was extremely eager and mature. He understood the concept that if one wants to be well trained and strengthen their skills, they must do so by fighting against the current. It was not easy for him to start the journey of training, and he truly valued the rare opportunity. In addition, he has always had this dream since he was young. For this dream, he needed a solid foundation of skills. That was why he needed to be dedicated and hardworking, and he must treasure every second and every minute. If I continue at this pace, I will achieve the 4th level of Qi soon enough. Ling Xian opened his eyes and exhaled deeply to release the toxins accumulated throughout his training. There were 9 frontiers to break for the 9 levels of Qi. With every frontier that was extended, the spiritual power of the trainee got stronger. The slow accumulation of the spiritual powers would eventually trigger a drastic change in the trainee. However, according to ancient literature, achieving the 9th level of Qi was not the end of the journey. Way back in time, there was a 10th level that could be achieved. As time went on, less and less people successfully reached the 10th level, an achievement also known as the stage of invincibility. Because so little people have achieved the 10th level in recent years, the idea became a myth. The Bible of the 3 flowers sure is strange. I cannot understand anything. Ling Xian took out the book he borrowed from the library and frowned as he attempted to read the unrecognizable characters carved onto the book. Even though mastering techniques was not the only way to train, simply absorbing spiritual energy to strengthen mana would not grant the trainee any advantages over others. The side effect of spiritual impurity may also arise, making it even easier for the trainee to be defeated. Learning different techniques as a way of training could bring drastic changes to one's body and give the trainee new special skills. There were 5 types of common techniques. The metal type allowed users' mana to become sharper and more alert. The wood type allowed users' physical attributes to become strong. The water type made the user's mana longer lasting. The fire type allowed the user's mana to produce extra damage when used. Finally, the earth type granted the user with extra defense abilities. The Bible of the 3 flowers, however, could not be categorized into any of the 5 types. The methods that the book recommended one to train were ones Ling Xian had never seen before and therefore cannot comprehend. I guess I will have no choice but to ask Master when I enter the painting of the 9 Immortals, Ling Xian said to himself. He stood up, inhaled deeply, and began to practice a set of well-known boxing routine. Fists of Longevity. Contrary to its profound name, the routine was simply used to enhance the trainee's physical capabilities and increase his or her blood flow. It was a routine that other trainees tended to neglect, but Ling Xian never missed a day of practicing it in the past decade. Because he was handicapped, getting physically stronger was his only option. The many side jobs he did also required him to be physically strong. The red sun rose from the east. Like a fish's white belly, the west sky brightened. Ling Xian adjusted his stance and continued his practice of the Fists of Longevity. Very soon he finished the routine. He was feeling refreshed, clear-minded, and there seemed to be an endless amount of energy in his body. Just as he was getting ready to leave, 3 shadows emerged from the deep forest, 2 men and a woman. The woman was in front and the 2 men were behind. They were less than 100 meters apart and were engaged in a wild chase. The woman was around the age of 20, her eyes beautiful like a painting, her visage exquisite and alluring. One of the men behind her was tall and the other was short. Both of them had gloomy expressions on their faces, as if they were looking to kill the woman. Ling Tianxiang, obediently give up, there is no way you can get away. The short man spelt out a technique with his hands. Suddenly, 7 fingertip-sized fireballs appeared and flew towards the woman. The scorching fireballs slid forward, burning the trees they touch into dust. In your dreams, the female, much like her name, was so dazzling that her beauty outshone the moon, and the flowers blushed at the sight of her face. She coldly snickered as a light layer of water encircled her, protecting her from the fireballs. She waved her hand. A 2-meter-long ice sword broke through the air, dashing towards the men. "Are you not ashamed of such a weak spell?" The tall man stopped running. With 2 hands, he punched the ground beneath him. Immediately, 3 giant earth walls emerged one by one behind each other. Though the ice sword was sharp and powerful, it barely pierced through the second wall when it lost its mana and evaporated into thin air. Ling Xiang's brows knitted together. She suddenly saw the young, handsome boy in front of her. She became anxious and screamed, "Run!" Ling Xian raised an eyebrow. He could not believe that there would be a hot pursuit in the middle of such an isolated forest. Moreover, he could not believe that he was witnessing it. "So unlucky!" Ling Xian hurriedly ran away as he sighed. What a joke! He did not have any intention of being a hero and saving the lady. Despite her beauty, heroes needed to be aware of their own capabilities and their opponents. The woman's abilities were already not weak in Ling Xian's book. Clearly, the 2 men were even stronger. Seeing the young boy running away like the wind, Ling Xiang was a little surprised and a little disappointed. Even though he was young, he was still a man. How could he just run away without any intention of helping her out? Did she lose her charm? She didn't have the time to think too much. Despite her wound, she clenched her teeth and casted a charm that helped her speed up. The 2 men laughed mockingly. Building up their energy, the 6th level of qi began to spew out of them ferociously, engulfing all of them, including Ling Xian. Feeling the weight of their vigor, Ling Xian felt like he was running in mud. A few drops of sweat formed on his forehead as his body got heavier and his feet got slower. Liang Xiang was now in an even worse situation. Before the hunting began with those 2 men, she already had a life and death battle with a werewolf. Her spiritual energy was running dangerously low. Under the gravity of their qi, she felt a powerful pressure on her chest. She spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. The 2 men smiled but did not stop their attacks. Rows of stone pillars surfaced from the ground, trapping Ling Xiang and Ling Xian. "Haha, Ling Xiang, we finally caught you. You did not think this day would come, did you?" The short man laughed furiously. "Screw off," Ling Xiang scowled. Using the last of her mana, countless icicles formed and shot towards the men. "I've been waiting for this." A giant flame flared up on the short man's left palm, melting those icicles. Finally, an inhibition spell was casted, tying up Ling Xiang's physical body and her spiritual energy. The short man walked closer. He pinched her now unmoving cheek and grinned. "Don't even try to fight it off. You never know, if you can make us happy, we might spare you your pitiful life. If you bastards touch even a hair of mine, the Ling clan will never forgive you." Ling Xiang's face whitened. "Ah, you are from the Ling clan? I am so scared." The short man faked a scared expression. "Oh my goodness, older brother, she is from the Ling clan. We have caused big trouble." "Oh my, a member of the Ling clan. We must let her go quickly," the tall man chimed in. Hearing this, Ling Xiang's eyes brightened with a little hope. Like a drowning person who just found a floating piece of wood, she was just about to speak when a stinging slap hit her face. A distinct, red, palm-shaped print showed up on her delicate and soft skin. "You," Ling Xiang clenched her teeth. She was not stupid. She realized immediately that these 2 were only acting. But those involved are often blinded. She couldn't believe she got tricked. "Do you even know your place? How dare you talk to me this way after being sealed of all your powers?" The short man smirked. "I know you are the eldest daughter of the Ling clan and the little sister of the leader, but so what? In a place so isolated, who will know of your death? Even if someone does find you eventually, my brother and I would be long gone." "I knew it. The Fang clan ordered you to kill me." Ling Xiang's heart sunk. She had lost all hope. Ling Xian, on the other side, knew he was in trouble. When the pillars rose and trapped him, he felt his heart drop. Now that he heard the secret of the Fang clan's attempt to kill the eldest daughter of the Ling clan, he knew he was dead. "I'm sorry for dragging you into this." Ling Xiang looked at Ling Xian, her eyes apologetic and regretful. Ling Xian didn't respond. He was thinking of a strategy to get out of there. He knew very well that with him knowing the faces of the 2 men and with him knowing such a big secret, the situation was not in his favor. The short man complimented. "I've heard about Lady Ling's beauty for a long time, but seeing it in person today has proven the rumors to be true." Liang Tian Xiang's whole body shook. She tried hard to stop her tears as she attempted to end her own life by biting off her tongue. But the tall man acted faster than her and grabbed her jaw. "You want to die? It's not going to be that easy," he sneered. At that moment, a helpless voice with a hint of ridicule spoke up. "Hey, how do you guys feel about including me in this?" The young man smiled warmly, with a trace of misfortune between his brows. The short man's face drooped in dissatisfaction. He stared at Ling Xian coldly. "I may have ignored your existence until now, but with a chi level of 3, how dare you anger us? Are you tired of living?" "You two alone aren't enough to kill me," Ling Xian said confidently. He truly believed that he can easily slaughter these two using merely a fraction of the power his eyes of execution could offer. "You don't have a lot of training under your belt, yet you are so arrogant." The tall man peeked at Ling Xian through his peripheral vision. "It isn't easy being a hero. You need actual skills and experience." "I am well aware that it isn't easy being a hero. I am someone who doesn't like getting involved in things. If you didn't trap me with these pillars and threaten to kill the lady over here, I wouldn't be having thoughts of killing you right now." Ling Xian chuckled ruthlessly. "Young man, you sure are conceited." A murderous expression loomed onto the tall man's face. Qi from the 6th level began to pour out of his body. He looked at Ling Xian and said, "Don't blame me when you enter the underworld. If you want to blame something, blame your miserable fate. Don't waste so much time talking to someone so worthless, big brother. Watch me kill him with one move." The short man grinned atrociously. His fingers moved rhythmically, commanding a spell. This time, 7 fireballs in the size of fists appeared out of thin air. At the speed of light, they moved toward Ling Xian. The 7-star electric fire technique. This technique was considered to be a strong technique due to its fast speed and the extent of the damage it could cause. However, because the short man was obviously not properly trained yet, the fireballs he summoned had no electric current running through them. Therefore, its speed and damage were nowhere near what it could be if they were perfectly casted. Ling Xian's expression turned serious. Simultaneously, one of his eyes turned black, the other turned white. He has unreleased the 4th-ranked inner eyes, the eyes of execution. Suddenly, the 7 fireballs seemed to have slowed down. Their flight paths became clear and predictable to Ling Xian. This was the eyes of execution's first ability. They could slow down the attack formed by the opponent, allowing the user to pinpoint the opponent's weakness. Ling Xian began to move his feet, dodging from left to right. His movement was graceful, like a butterfly flying through a flower bed. Just like that, all 7 fireballs missed him. "What?" The short man's eyes widened. He couldn't believe it. "How is it possible, dodging my 7-star electric fire technique?" Ever since he learned this technique, there hasn't been a single monk who dodged them. Even the high-leveled monks could only cast other spells to try and counterattack. Seeing someone successfully dodge the attack was fascinating for him. He shook with nervousness. Ling Tian Xiang was also in awe. Unlike the 2 brothers who were shocked at Ling Xian's ability to avoid the attack, she was captivated by the pair of black and white eyes he had. After all, she was the eldest daughter of the Ling clan and has witnessed and experienced much more than the 2 brothers had. But his eyes still caught her off guard. Though unsure of the specifics, she was certain that they were one of the legendary inner eyes. The inner eyes that could only be awakened by those with true talent. Ling Tian Xiang's mind was blown. When did the city of Qing acquire an extraordinarily talented, yet spiteful young boy? "The 7-star electric fire technique, not as good as I thought it would be." Ling Xian placed his hands behind his back. His body language alone made the brothers feel threatened. "Damn it, young man, don't be so cocky. You were simply lucky. Try avoiding me again if you dare." The short man squinted his eyes. Using all his strength this time, he again summoned 7 fireballs and directed them towards Ling Xian's direction. Dong, there was a loud rumble. Almost immediately, a heavy gust of dust filled the air. Ling Xian walked out of the thick cloud of dust nonchalantly, his white robe not at all dirtied from the attack. The short man's face whitened as if he had seen a ghost. All the blood drained from his face as he realized that successfully dodging the fireballs might be luck the first time, but succeeding a second time meant he has definite skills. "My turn now?" The corners of Ling Xian's lips curved up. In his eyes, you could see the sunrise, the sunset, the earth splitting, and the sky crackling. Waves of dust and fog started to rise and form around him. Slowly, the dust gathered and solidified into a blood-stained and majestic-looking sword. The Sword of Extinction. The sword was one of the 9 transformed forms of the Eyes of Execution. Formed out of fog and dust, it could slice through the heavens and pierce the underworld. It was known to be indestructible. The legends had it that it was a valuable treasure of the gods. It had been 12,000 years since the Sword of Extinction has appeared. As if grumpy to be woken up from a deep sleep, the sword emitted surges of ice-cold, killing aura. It displayed violence and blood to its audiences, forcing them to watch murderous and destructive scenes one after another. In one scene, there was a man with red hair dressed in red. He held the sword as he stood on top of a mountain and heartlessly stared at a pile of blood-drenched dead bodies. It was an image of what hell would look like. The brothers shook with fear, their organs were bursting with terror. They were overwhelmed by the strong, killer presence of the sword. Their hands and feet turned cold, and they've forgotten how to move. When the sword holder has the will, he could lead the battle in any direction he wants. Holding tightly onto the sword, Ling Xian felt a gush of emotions, and he believed then that he could take over the world. His chi level was also rising fast, escalating from the 3rd level to the 4th, the 5th, and then finally stopping. It was another ability the Eyes of Execution brought him, an instant increase in chi levels. Though he has too undertrained to unlock the Eye's potential fully, his current state was enough to raise his chi by 2 whole levels. This came to show how truly frightening the Eyes of Execution were. The short man had lost all his will to live. He was arrogant over the fact that his chi was at level 5. But how in hell did the 3rd level, the young boy he looked down upon, suddenly reach his level? "I can't just sit and wait for death." The tall man clenched his teeth together and spat out some blood. Abruptly, the ground cracked open, and a 30-meter tall giant emerged from the ground and dashed toward Ling Xian. Bang! A giant foot stepped down and shook the entire ground. The stone giant raised its arms and formed 2 fists. Aimed towards Ling Xian's head, it smashed. The whoosh of wind messed up Ling Xian's hair. Without any changes in his expression, Ling Xian lifted the sword above his head to block the fists. Streams of blood-red spirits ascended out of the sword and stabbed into the giant's body. The next thing they heard was a bang. Ling Xian bounced backwards from the force while the giant cracked from the sword's impact. "Explode," Ling Xian said coldly. He held the sword with his left hand as his right hand drew out a hand seal. Abruptly, the giant's body cracked more and more until there was nothing left but dust. "Is that all you've got? Then let me send you on your journey to the dead." Ling Xian's expression was unforgiving. Fog seemed to be twirling in each of his black and white eyes. The Sword of Extinction emitted 1,000 rays of red light. He pointed the tip of the sword to the sky. The sky turned blood red. The threatening and violent atmosphere scared off many birds and animals as countless trees withered. The handsome face, the mythical blade, the suffocating atmosphere. At this moment, Ling Xian felt like he was a master of the sword, an immortal, the ruler of all beings. Lion Tianxiang felt faint. Staring at the outline of his striking frame, a strange emotion flashed across her eyes. This moment, this scene, deeply imprinted in her brain, never faded for the rest of her life. As for the other 2, they were petrified. Their bodies uncontrollable shuddered, and their minds filled with horror. "Monster, you are a monster," the short man screamed. "Goddammit, how did we piss off such an evil being?" The tall one didn't understand what regret was until now. He suppressed his apprehension and casted the strongest technique he knew. An enormous yellow door surfaced from cracks on the ground and stood before the brothers, blocking them from Ling Xian. "Die," Ling Xian pointed to the sky. Thousands of rays in the sky converged and solidified into a thick and heavy red sword. The blade it formed was simply divine. Whoosh! The sword flew by and slid through the stone door with ease. It then split into thousands of bloody knives, stabbed through the brothers and left their dead bodies unrecognizable. They never would have guessed that their lives would end in the hands of a young boy who had a chi level of merely 3. Compared to their 5th and 6th chi levels, how could they have known? "This is my first time killing someone. It makes me a bit uncomfortable," Ling Xian thought to himself as he walked forward. He took the brothers' personal pouches, then looked towards Ling Tianxian. The woman must know about his inner eyes now. But him having the inner eyes was not something he should expose, at least not until he's trained enough to protect himself. The tallest tree was always the first to be destroyed by the wind. It was a simple concept to him. You actually won, Ling Tianxiang said cheerfully. She was shaken and impressed by the fact that Ling Xian had the inner eyes. She did not expect, however, that he would win the battle so easily, so crisply. Thank Ling Tianxiang smiled happily. Before she could finish her sentence, she felt a shiver up her spine. You want to kill me. Ling Xian had placed the sword against her white neck. He whispered, as the eldest daughter of the Ling clan, you must have seen a lot. You know that I have awakened a pair of inner eyes, don't you? Ling Tianxiang was planning on denying it. But under the stare of those mysterious yet mortifying eyes, her heart shivered with fear. You are scared that I would tell the world that you have the inner eyes. If that is the case, then you can kill me, slice me, whatever you want. I rather die in your hands than in the other bastard's hands. Ling Xian frowned. In all honesty, he did not want to kill the woman. Though she was a high-up and was respected in the clan, and he was born insignificant with thin clan blood flowing through his veins, the two of them were still collateral relatives. Strictly speaking, he should call her Aunt Liang Tianxiang. Swear on your soul that you will not disclose what you saw today to anyone. What happened today will stay here, and that is the end, Ling Xian said softly. Liang Tianxiang's eyes brightened. She swore on her soul as he had requested, then she carefully asked, Can you tell me your name and release the seal they set on me? Xian Ling is the name, Ling Xian said, switching around the two characters in his name. He swung the sword to unleash her from the inhibition spells. He then shut his eyes. When he opened them again, they were back to normal. The sword had also evaporated into a thick fog. The bans have been lifted. I assume you can get out of this jungle yourself. Ling Xian glanced at Ling Tianxiang. Take care of yourself. He turned and disappeared among the trees. Ling Tianxiang's face darkened. She watched as Ling Xian left and stared after him for a long while even after he was gone. When her mind returned to reality, she dusted the white robe he left her, and coincidentally, a piece of black metal fell from the robe to the ground. It was the identification medal that every member of the Ling clan carried. Xian Ling, Ling Xian, you are a member of my Ling clan, she giggled. Ha, I would like to watch you try running away from my palm. A trace of joy and excitement flashed across her glistening eyes. She then smiled brightly, causing the whole city to succumb to her beauty. These days, there was a rumor going around the Ling clan. The clan leader's little sister and the bright pearl in everyone's palm, Ling Tianxiang, has fallen in love with Ling Xian. She has even sworn to never marry unless the groom was him. In the beginning, the rumor spread within a small circle. The first reaction from many people was disbelief. What? The #1 goddess from the city of Qing was interested in the #1 handicap of the Ling clan. How did feelings even develop between two people who have never had any interactions? It must have been a story fabricated out of thin air. Within an hour, the rumor spread further and further, and became more realistic each time the tale was retold. Some people even claimed they saw Lady Ling packing around wearing a man's white robe. This observation made people suspicious. Before long, most people from the Ling clan started to believe the rumor. Ling Xian was somewhat famous within the collateral family due to his inability to practice Taoism. People have laughed at him for years. Therefore, when the Ling apprentices, who were also secret admirers of Lady Ling, heard about the rumor, they were dumbfounded and angry. They all swore to find Ling Xian, the handicap, and teach him a lesson. The actual words Ling Tianxiang said were, Find the person named Ling Xian. He is outstanding. Definitely fetch him for me. But of course, this message was interpreted in many different ways and were passed on in many different versions. And of course, the version people chose to believe was the ridiculous version with the most nonsense. When the rumor circled back to Ling Tianxiang, she didn't know if she should cry or laugh. She felt 70% anger and 30% embarrassment. Right now, she was sitting in her bedroom, tenderly stroking the long white robe. She recalled the moment when Ling Xian swung the sword. She blushed as a giggle escaped her lips. Lady Ling, I have found information on Ling Xian. Her servant Bai He announced softly. Ling Tianxiang snapped back into reality. She took the files and studied them, her brows lifted in confusion. Bai He, are you sure you found the right person? How could he be born without the ability to practice Taoism? I am certain this is the right person, Lady Ling. In the entire Ling clan, there is only one person with his name, Bai He answered. A person who was born disabled can awaken the inner eyes. Ling Tian Xiang laughed. It seems like the entire Ling clan has been tricked by this young boy. No wonder he made her swear not to tell anyone about his inner eyes. He seemed comfortable with being low-key, and he didn't want people to know he was actually a genius. Now that she thinks about it, he should have called her aunt. Ling Tian Xian cupped her cheek with her hand. She didn't know what she was thinking or what to think. Lady, staring at Ling Tian Xiang's amorous expression, Bai He bit her lips. Say what you want to say, don't stutter, Ling Tian Xiang frowned. Lady, even though the Ling clan does not inhibit marriage within the clan, as long as it's not between direct relatives, but between an aunt and a nephew, no matter how distant the blood relation, it's not allowed, Bai He disclosed her worry. This isn't something for you to think about. Ling Tian Xiang was a bit annoyed, though she didn't know why. She gestured for Bai He to leave. Gazing at the blooming peach blossoms outside her window, the beauty sighed. A sound filled with complex emotions and meanings. The male lead from the rumor was hiding inside a mountain cave. He sat in the lotus position, his breath steady and thoughts scarce. He was absorbing the spirits from the heaven and the earth. The side effects of unleashing the eyes of execution was starting to kick in. After his chi fell by 3 levels, he became extremely weak. Even a shift of his fingers took all of his strength. However, the positive benefits the eyes brought him were also very obvious. He now had a general idea of the power of the eyes, and from that last use, he also noticed his own weaknesses. He had little training, no knowledge regarding any techniques, and he only won the battle so cleanly because of the natural power of the inner eyes. Because of all that, Ling Xian formed a new plan. He needed to train his chi fast. Then he must find a few techniques to master before he exercises his battlefield awareness and gains some experience. He needed to organically grow in order to not overly rely on the inner eyes. After all, he had no plans to show off the eyes of execution to anyone. To him, it was too dangerous. If people found out he had the 4th-ranked eye of execution, then the entire city of Qing, no, the entire Qin dynasty would craze over him. The pro was that numerous successful cultivators would beg for him to consider them as his new master, and he would have all the resources he needed to become strong and to become a hero in the Qin dynasty. On the other hand, the consequences of announcing his inner eyes outweighed the pros. Ling Xian has heard more than once about the story of how those with inner eyes had their eyes gouged out by those who want them for themselves. Many people have taken those eyes and transplanted them onto their own bodies or their apprentices' bodies. Because, even if the ability of the inner eyes acquired is not meant for battles, they were still more powerful than any technique a monk could train for. Not to mention what Ling Xian had were the majestic eyes of execution. He was not willing to risk it. After a long time, Ling Xian opened his eyes. A bright ray of light flashed across his eyes and then immediately dimmed to nothing. Hugh, I finally recovered a little mana. Time to check out my war trophies. Ling Xian's lips curved up as he took out the dead brother's pouches, ready to raid. These storage pouches were the most basic instruments in the Taoism community. They were cheap, easy to get, and everyone had at least one. A small room could fit inside the pouch, so it was usually protected by a spell. However, once the owner of the pouch dies, the spell that banned thieves is lifted. This saved Ling Xian some time. He first ripped open the short man's pouch and found only 10 stones and a few potions. Nothing else valuable. So poor, hopefully the tall guy's pouch is worth my time, Ling Xian said disappointedly. When he opened the next pouch, his eyes brightened. Inside the pouch there was 5 cubic meters of space. A pile of 500-600 stones that were emitting rich spiritual energy sat there. More importantly, there was a red fan. The rivet of the fan was black, and 3 characters, fan of fire, were carved onto the guard of the fan. On the fan leaf, giant flames were sewed onto it, making it appear mystique and ancient. A spiritual instrument. Only the monks who passed fundamental training can use this type of offensive weapon. What a good find. I cannot believe I acquired my own instrument when I'm still in the Qi training stage. Ling Xian was very pleased. He examined the fan in detail, and the more he looked at it, the more he liked it. In the entire Taoism community, spiritual instruments were a highly popular attacking method. To have an instrument that was both powerful and suitable for the user was the dream of every monk. Ling Xian was not an exception. Before he even started on the path of Taoism, He was most jealous of those who could use their instruments to call for wind and call for rain whenever they wanted. In his books, those were the truly successful monks. It's a shame that with my level of training I cannot use this fan of fire. I wonder how strong it is, Ling Xian said pitifully. He continued to look through the man's pouch and discovered that in the pile of stones, a palm-sized fragment of something was hidden. The material of the fragment appeared very special, gold but not gold, metal but not metal. It looked like the remains of an ordinary spiritual instrument, but it was emitting 6 different types of light and was flowing with mysteriousness and desolation. This feeling, Liao Kang Qiang's illusory body began to appear. He stared at the fragment in Ling Xian's hand, paused, realized something, and spoke in shock. A fragment from the wheel of the 6th samsara, you are one lucky fella. Master, you have awoken, Ling Xian said in surprise. I have recovered a little. No need to continue my deep sleep, Liao Kang Qiang grinned. But you acquired a fragment of the wheel of the 6th samsara. That is such good luck. The wheel of the 6th samsara, this fragment. Ling Xian looked at the colorful fragment in his hand. Yes, even though that is only one piece of it, if you can collect all of them and rebuild the entire wheel, then it will become a divine instrument. It possessed the power to set one of the strong rules between heaven and earth. You must treasure it, Liao Kang Qiang said seriously. Then how many pieces are there in total? Ling Xian asked, sounding ambitious. To set a rule between the heaven and the earth, if he could get his hands on it, then who would dare be his opponent? According to records, the wheel was broken in the last century. There was no clear record of how many pieces, but I suspect there are no more than 100. Because nobody can break the wheel of the 6th samsara to more than 100 pieces. Liao Kang Qiang gave a number that made Ling Xian speechless. 100 pieces, he laughed bitterly. Don't be discouraged. When you become an immortal, you will have a view of the entire world like it's your backyard. Moreover, though the wheel is broken, each piece has spiritual remains. If the pieces are near each other, they will call out to each other, Liao Kang Qiang comforted. If that's the case, then there is a possibility. Ling Xian became hopeful. To have even acquired this one piece has proven your luck and your fate. Back in the years, Master, I have thought about collecting the pieces to complete the wheel. But sadly, I just didn't have the luck. Even after I surpassed the 1st realm with alchemy, I never found a piece, Liao Kang Qiang exclaimed. Master, this piece was not mine to begin with. It was a monk's. He was planning on killing me but ended up being killed instead. I acquired his pouch and found this fragment as a result. Ling Xian touched his nose and chuckled. Liao Kang Qiang paused, then laughed while holding his belly. That's why I smelled a hint of blood on your body. Don't mind that. In the Taoism community, it's a survival of the fittest. Though he had the ability to get a fragment of the wheel, he didn't have the ability to keep it, and you snatched it as a result. That is fate. It doesn't matter if it's stolen, snatched, or found. What's in your hands is yours. If what's yours gets stolen, then blame yourself or blame the cruelness of the world. If you blame yourself, you will become more motivated and transfer your anger into training. However, if you choose to blame the world, you will have no will to improve yourself. As a result, you will waste your life. Liang Xian's heart felt heavy. He was silent for a long time before he said sincerely, Yes, Master, I the apprentice understand. Liao Kang Qiang smiled mysteriously. Master, I went into a deep sleep in haste last time. I forgot to give you a gift. Now, as your master, I will gift you with 3 things, with each thing being a treasure that countless monks go crazy over. 3 gifts. Ling Xian was full of hope and excitement. To be gifted by the legendary alchemist, these presents must be rare and extraordinary. I spent my entire life obsessed with alchemy, Liao Kang Qiang reminisced. As my apprentice, alchemy is something you must not only learn but also master, as it would be humiliating if you don't. Don't worry, Master. Apprentice has been a student under an alchemist for 6 years. Before, I could not absorb spiritual energy from the heaven and the earth, therefore I have been unable to produce any medicine or dan. But I have a firm grasp on alchemy knowledge, enough to qualify for the 9th realm, Ling Xian smiled. Liao Kang Qiang looked at him in surprise and praised. Not bad. My luck really is not bad. Not only were you born talented, you are also already a 9th realm alchemist at the age of 14. This is rare to see even if you search the entire world. You flatter me, Master. Compared to you entering the 9th realm at 13, I cannot even compare. Ling Xian remained humble. There is no need to be meek. As long as you are willing to learn and put in the effort with you training, I am confident that you will enter the fifth realm before you turn 20. When that time comes, you will break my record for being the youngest fifth realm alchemist. Liao Kangqiang stroked his beard and whispered, Now that I know you are already on the path to becoming an alchemist, then I dare ask, what do you think was the most desirable treasure during my generation? Ling Xian thought about it and said, I think it's a godly fire. Very good. The biggest dream instrument during my generation was to birth and raise a godly fire. This type of flame not only can take down your enemy, but more importantly, the dans brewed with these flames have superior quality that are drastically different from those made with regular flames. There's also an increase in success rate with the dan when the flame is used during the brewing process. Sadly, a godly fire is beyond rare. You may see it in your lifetime, but you cannot possess it. Numerous alchemists are disappointed for life for not having this flame. Liao Kangqiang looked at Ling Xian and murmured, The first gift, Master I, plan to give you is a godly fire that was naturally created by heaven and earth. Its name is the burning flame of purity. It is a flame that cannot be created on impure grounds and cannot be used by those with bad intentions. He waved his long sleeve and a silver flame appeared in midair, heating up everything around it. The high temperature of the flame could burn the sky, ignite the earth, and scorch the world. The silver flame waltzed in the air. Other than the heat waves, a hint of pureness and brightness surrounded it. Ling Xian's entire body shook. Gazing at the silver flame, he was having difficulty breathing. The burning flame of purity. It was one of the legendary godly fires. This flame not only had a terrifying temperature that burned everything it touches, but it also had the ability to expel everything that was evil. The monks that had a godly fire were able to defend themselves from everything that was impure and were immune to all poisons. There were various uses for the fire, and it was a dream possession for many alchemists. When I acquired this godly fire, I had the same reaction. Liao Kangqiang was very satisfied with Ling Xian's almost drooling face. He whispered, The original flame died with my physical body. This particular flame was reborn in the painting of the 9 Immortals, and I will give it to you as a present. With this flame, I will never have to worry about you departing from Taoism and following heterodox ways. Thank you, Master. Ling Xian bowed deeply. He could feel Liao Kangqiang's sincerity. This touched him deeply, as he never had someone to rely on since he was a child. Liao Kangqiang waved his sleeve again. This time, a gust of wind lifted Ling Xian into midair. Don't thank me yet. This is only the first gift. The next gift is something that's of the same value, if not better, to the godly fire. Use your head and think about what it could be. Something that could possibly be even more compelling. Ling Xian's eyes brightened in excitement. He racked his brain, searching for possibilities of what this next gift could be. Something on the same level as a godly fire. An idea formed in his head. He couldn't help but say, no way. The answer in his head was so shocking he could not believe it himself. As if he read Ling Xian's mind, Liao Kangqiang grinned gently. You're right, it's a Dan essence. A Dan essence? Ling Xian's face was full of shock. There were only 2 things alchemists could possibly want. One was a godly fire, and the other was a Dan essence. It was unclear which one of the 2 things were more valuable. If a monk must choose from the 2, they would choose the first one because a godly fire is extremely helpful in battle. But if an alchemist were to choose, it would definitely be the latter. A Dan essence was a mystic instrument that countless alchemists desired. One way to acquire it was to find it during the moment an alchemist surpasses a realm. But most alchemists could not get their hands on a Dan, a scene even after reaching the first realm. A Dan essence could also be bred through the brewing of an extraordinary Dan. It's not hard to recognize that the kind of Dan required to birth an essence must be rare and powerful, thus, not a Dan that can be easily made even if you were a first-realm alchemist. This is why Ling Xian was beyond shocked when he learned Liao Kangqiang was giving him a Dan essence. Nobody knew how many types of Dan essences there were. However, 7 types of them had been created and recorded. These 7 essences kept alchemists up at night because the temptation of acquiring one was too strong. For example, the essence of cloning. Similar to how it sounds, the essence allowed the consumer to gain the ability of knowing exactly the ingredients of any Dan the moment they see the Dan itself. Imagine, Someone works for decades to perfect a recipe for a powerful Dan, but it could be duplicated in a second by another person. How would that make a person feel? Do you perhaps have the essence of cloning? Ling Xian was hopeful. Liao Kangqiang laughed and mocked. In your dreams, though I actually did have one of those, it died with my physical body. The essence I want to grant you today is the spiritual Dan I brewed while out training. Because it was struck by lightning for 9 days straight, air from the primordial world was poured into the Dan. By coincidence, an essence was formed. I had never used this essence, hence I still have it today. He raised his right hand, and a rainbow-colored Dan appeared on his palm. It transformed into a little dragon and swam around. It then transformed into a baby tiger who leaped and hopped. Finally, it transformed into a pocket-sized heart. A strange aroma swept the air. It was an unusual yet beautiful scent. This is what a Dan essence looks like. Ling Xian was surprised. He inhaled the essence deeply and immediately felt rejuvenated and relaxed. It was as if he could start flying. Master, what kind of essence is this? The essence of herbalism, Liao Kangqiao answered. Ling Xian was over the moon happy. The essence of herbalism was the most abstruse essence out of the 7 known essences. It allowed the user to acquire all knowledge of all nature's creations. As soon as the user saw a herbal medicine, its medicinal effect, ingredients, and date it was made would become known to the user. Once the knowledge was acquired, it was never forgotten by the user. The knowledge of herbalism was extremely valuable for an alchemist. Not only would it speed up the brewing process of any Dan, it also increased the success rate of brewing. Sometimes, spiritual energy would bless the alchemist and a muse would land. The alchemist would then learn to mix and match ingredients and create a recipe that was innovative and very capable. Though its ability did not seem to be against God's rules as much as the essence of cloning. For a beginner alchemist, essence of herbalism was definitely the best one. Look at you, I'm assuming you know all about this essence. Then I will save my breath and not explain any further. Come, I will infuse this essence into your heart and teach you how to train your godly fire. Liao Kangqiang had the essence in his right hand and the godly fire in his left. Slowly, he merged the two together in midair. Then an amazing scene happened. The burning flame of purity was a flame that burned everything it touches. However, the moment it came into contact with the essence, it tightly hugged the essence like a kid who found his favorite toy. It did not hurt the essence one bit. What? How can a fire with such high temperature not burn the essence? Ling Xian said with a confused expression on his face. Is this really strange to you? This is the reason why I dare allow you to train the godly fire. A Dan essence is one of the purest objects in the universe. That's why the flame of purity cannot hurt it. When I infuse both of them into your heart, you will easily be able to train these 2 treasures, Liao Kangqiang explained. Oh, that explains it. I have learned something new, Ling Xian nodded. Sit in a lotus position, hold your breath and your gaze. Liao Kangqiang became serious. He tapped Ling Xian's chest with his index finger and immediately, Ling Xian's chest split open and his red, beating heart was in sight. Ba-doop, ba-doop. A strong heartbeat became strikingly visible. Ling Xian watched this scene in awe. There were no pain and no discomfort. Nonetheless, looking at his wide-open chest was distressful. Absorb. Liao Kangqiang instructed loudly. The flame that cuddled the essence slowly entered Ling Xian's heart. Immediately, his fingers moved into different hand seal positions. A flood of spiritual energy filled the entire cave. This energy seemed to be clingy and sticky. Soon, it flawlessly instilled the 2 instruments into Ling Xian's heart like they were never separate items in the first place. Bang! Ling Xian's tightly shut eyes opened abruptly. The robe he was wearing danced, though there were no wind. After absorbing the 2 instruments, his chi suddenly rose to level 4, 1 step away from reaching level 5. Both hands and fists, he felt the energy flowing through his body. Ling Xian smiled. Lifting his right hand, a ray of silver flame rose from his palm. The moment this flame appeared, the temperature in the cave increased rapidly. Under the heat waves given off by the flame, everything in the cave refracted and spiraled. It was the burning flame of purity. I may have underestimated you. 2 treasures that people spent a lifetime pursuing were so easily absorbed and used by you. If this news gets out, I wonder how many people would die of jealousy, Liao Kangqiang exclaimed. It is all thanks to master you, Ling Xian was brimming with appreciation. The respectable elderly before him not only lifted his inhibition spells, but gifted two treasures that were legendary level. Godly Fire and Dan Essence. Both of them had the ability to cause a bloody war. Between a master and an apprentice, there's no need to be so contentious, Liao Kangqiang sighed. If you really want to thank me, then start training hard on your alchemy path and do not slack off. Yes, I already have the determination for it, Ling Xian swore silently. He was determined to find the instrument that could reconstruct his master's physical body once he's improved his ability. I will now grant you one last gift. In my lifetime, nothing can surpass the meaningfulness of this object. Liao Kangqiang had a serious expression on his face. With one finger, he pressed his index finger between Ling Xian's brows. At that instant, a passage from a scripture circulated into Ling Xian's brain. Large paragraphs of difficult words and concepts slowly sank into his memory. Though he could not fully understand the meaning of the numerous chapters, he could feel the weight and the importance of each and every character in his bones. Bible of Alchemy. This was the name of the scripture, a simple 3 words with a very hefty meaning. Master, this is... Ling Xian found it hard to hide his astonishment. Think of it as an inheritance, Liao Kangqiang whispered. This scripture recorded everything I have learned in my life. It is divided into 2 parts. The first part is about the Dan making process. It includes ways to control the flames and many tips regarding Dan brewing. The second part is an alchemy technique that I created myself. Its name is the 8 cultivation of the soul technique. To create this technique, I incorporated my own mana and my whole life into it. This technique allows the user to revive any damaged Dan and turn useless Dan into useful ones. It has countless uses, and the user can get very creative with how and when to use this technique. I hope you put in the effort to learn it well. Yes, Master. Ling Xian was truly in shock. Though he knew that as an apprentice, he will one day inherit Liao Kangqiang's secret techniques. But he never expected the day to come so quickly. It was, after all, a technique created by the legendary Liao Kangqiang, and it was a technique he spent his lifetime developing and perfecting. Whoever learned and used this technique will become a glorious hero himself in the future. If this news gets out, the entire Taoism community would freak out. Happiness came too suddenly for me. Just 2 days ago, I was at the bottom of the pit, struggling to get rid of the title of being an ordinary human being. But now I have broken the inhibition spell, was gifted with so many treasures, and I have gotten you as a master. Everything just seems like a dream. Ling Xian grinned bitterly, but his expression was full of joy. This is what fate is, Liao Kangqiang smiled. It was fate that I woke up the moment you walked by. You having inhibition spells on you was also fate. Fate plays so many games with us, it is hard to wrap our heads around it. Yes, the most wonderful concept in this world is fate. Ling Xian seemed enlightened. Liao Kangqiang looked at the apprentice he was so proud of and grinned. All right, that is all the gifts I have for you. Now let me test your knowledge with alchemy. How do you want to test me? Ling Xian was confident. You will brew a Dan. I will be observing the entire process and get a good grasp on your knowledge, Liao Kangqiang said. No problem. I know that I now possess 2 different treasures in me, but even if I had none, I am certain you would be satisfied with my knowledge and skills. The corners of Ling Xian's lips curved up. Since getting involved with alchemy at the age of 8, Ling Xian had been an alchemy pupil and can only assist Master Fang with the brewing process. Because he could not practice Taoism, he could not summon spiritual energy and crystallize them into a Dan. It has always been a huge disappointment of his. Finally, I can practice alchemy by myself instead of jealously stare at Master Fang, he said to himself. In his eyes, there were rays of ambition. If that's really the case, then take out your cauldron and let me see what you have got. Liao Kangqiang was smiling. A cauldron, do you have one, Master? Ling Xian was startled at the request. Of course I have one. My cauldron was a rare and exquisite possession. Sadly, I don't know who has it now. Liao Kangqiang seemed sad and hateful. But I do not have a cauldron. You don't have a cauldron? Liao Kangqiang laughed as if he just heard a very funny joke. Are you kidding me? As an alchemist, you do not have a cauldron. Master, I was unable to brew any Dan back then. On top of that, even if it's a cauldron that is bad quality, a lot of stones are needed for it. I'm afraid I can't afford one. Ling Xian blushed. He was embarrassed. I can rent a cauldron room. He can't afford to buy a cauldron, so the solution was to rent a cauldron room. Liao Kangqiang was not sure how to respond, so he simply laughed. If that is a case, then why don't you rent a cauldron room? Ling Xian smiled. He walked out the cave and marched towards the city. In the city of Qing, there were 3 alchemists. Out those 3, 2 are 9th realm alchemists and 1 missing 8th realm alchemist. The 2 9th realm alchemists each opened up their own alchemy pavilions. One was the Fang Pavilion, and the other was the Lin Pavilion. The Lin Pavilion was located on the busiest street market. Different than the Fang Pavilion, you can rent a cauldron room on top of purchasing medicines and dans. This was the reason Ling Xian chose the Lin Pavilion. Even though it was already nighttime, there were still many people on the street bargaining and making sales pitches. Ling Xian wore his black robe and his bamboo hat. He walked into the Lin Pavilion. As soon as he entered, a young lady welcomed him. "Can I help you? What are you looking to buy today?" "I am not purchasing anything. I just need a quiet cauldron room," Ling Xian said calmly. The young lady introduced. "Our pavilion has 3 types of cauldron room. We charge by the hour with a minimum of 2 hours. It is 200 stones for a heaven cauldron room, 100 for an earth cauldron room, and 50 for a mortal cauldron room." Ling Xian listened in awe. These prices were definitely rip-offs. Then he remembered the astronomical figure he would have to spend buying a cauldron, so he bit his lip and took out 50 stones. "I will rent a mortal room. 2 hours would be fine." "Sound good, follow me, please." The lady guided him towards the room. Ling Xian nodded and followed her to a row of rooms. He randomly picked one and walked in. Time is money. He did not pause for a single second before he walked to the counter and started working. He even forgot the basic courtesy of enabling the noise-blocking function of the room. Spirit-absorbing grass, star blue flower, 7-leaf clover. He took out different ingredients from his pouch one by one. All of the 9 ingredients required for the dan was given by Master Fang. Over the years, Ling Xian had saved all the leftover ingredients that Master Fang did not want. It has proven to be the right move, as they have become useful and are saving him many stones. Ling Xian prepared the 9 spiritual medicine needed to make an energy-freezing dan. He impatiently looked at the cauldron. The cauldron was more than a meter tall, and it sat comfortably on its 3 feet. It was completely black, and there were 2 vents in the shape of a dragon's head on the cauldron's body. These vents ensure that flames can really heat up the ingredients when needed. In the center of the cauldron's lid was a fist-sized hole. This hole is for the alchemists to throw in ingredients and for the final collection step of the dan. This cauldron was covered in intricate and complicated pattern carvings, giving it an old but sturdy look. Looking at this handsome cauldron, Ling Xian nodded in approval. He collected his breath and sat in his lotus pose. Inhaling deeply, Ling Xian raised his arms with his palms up. After a silent command, 2 silver flames appeared on his hands and he tightly cupped the vents with his palms. Bang! After an exploding sound, the flame of purity began to burn inside the cauldron. Steam started gushing out from underneath as the cauldron heated up to extremely high temperatures. "Not bad, the first step of brewing a dan, urging the fire, and you did well." Liao Kangqiang's spirit appeared out of nowhere again. "Even though I could not brew dans myself, I often did the steps before the actual brewing process. I am well familiar with these procedures." Ling Xian picked up the first ingredient needed for his energy-freezing dan, the spirit-absorbing grass, and was just ready to drop it into the cauldron when a message transported from his heart to his brain. Spirit-absorbing grass naturally has a huge amount of energy from heaven and earth. Its effects are overbearing and cannot be consumed orally. With an expiry range of 30 years, it is the main ingredient in a spirit-freezing dan. However, it is not best to put it in first when brewing the dan. Essence of herbalism is taking its effect. Ling Xian was startled at the suddenness of the message. He put down the spirit-absorbing grass and subconsciously picked up the 7-leaf clover. 7-leaf clover, mild effects. It shows great results for internal injuries. With an expiry range of 10 years, it is the ideal ingredient out of the 9 ingredients required to use first when making spirit-freezing dan. Another message flashed into his brain. Ling Xian grunted deeply and decided to trust the essence's suggestion. He dropped the 7-leaf clover into the cauldron. The silver flames burned angrily and engulfed the clover. The oppressive fire did not burn the clover to ashes right away. Rather, the flame cooked it little by little. The clover first lost its protective skin, then its precious insides burned away. I see that you took the essence's advice. Liao Kangqiang complimented after observing Ling Xian's actions. Master, I understand that the essence gave me basic information about the different ingredients, but why did I also get a message that I should not put in spirit-absorbing grass first? Ling Xian questioned. Liao Kangqiang smiled. That is the power of the essence of herbalism. It provides you with more than the basic knowledge of each medicinal herbs. Having it is the same as having a textbook in your head. You will know each ingredient like the back of your hand. Knowing what to put in first and what to put in second is a natural result of having that knowledge. Knowing each ingredient like the back of your hand. Ling Xian thought about it carefully and finally realized the meaning of the phrase. Knowing each spiritual medical ingredient like the back of your hand means he will not only brew dans at a faster speed with higher success rates, but he will also brew highly effective dans that are top quality. When he realized this, he was short of breath. As if he could read Ling Xian's mind, Liao Kangqiang snapped Ling Xian back to reality by saying, "What are you fantasizing? Having the knowledge of ingredients is truly useful, but mere luck and knowledge are not enough to produce the highest quality dan." Master, you are right. I got too caught up in my thoughts. The essence you blessed me with is truly strong, but it is not all-powerful. There was an unwavering sense of determination in his eyes. To brew a truly top-quality dan, the alchemist needs to have a thorough knowledge towards alchemy, to have a complete understanding of spiritual medicine, and to have perfect manipulations of spiritual energy. I am very glad you understand that, Liao Kangqiang praised. However, having textbook knowledge of the 100 types of spiritual medicines allows you to have a higher than average alchemy skill. Though it's a bit difficult to brew dans that are 10 out of 10, you can easily achieve brewing dans that are 7 out of 10.